in the new year. I know it's already March, but it's still New Year. So I'm so glad you joined, because I can give you very good tips and techniques of how to manage yourself. So my name is Celia Denton. I am an industrial psychologist, and I just want to close my chat box here. We do mainly psychometric assessments for organizations, for recruitment purposes, for personal development purposes. As part of that, we also do training, things like stress management, emotional intelligence, things like that. So keep an eye on your emails for the emotional intelligence course that's also going to come up, which is very interesting. It's very good. So there's a few things that you need to tick off with this year that you need to do. And really, this hour is for yourself. That's why I told for the new people that just logged in, this next hour is just for you. Just focus on you. Switch your cell phone off. Just do this for you. And don't get distracted or interrupted by anything else. Just do this one thing right now. Okay, so my company's name is PTES Consulting. It stands for Psychometric Testing and Evaluation Services. That was a practice. Then we registered as a company. HR Talk is our HR support company that we work together with. So we're a little bit more specialized when it comes to psychometric testing. Here's our websites if you want to have a squiz. But anyway, I'm going to tell you everything in any way. So, okay, so what we are going to cover today is the following. As we go along, feel free to type in a question in the Q&A box or the chat box, whichever one will work for you. And we'll go through it systematically. So participate. I really like it when people participate, because we are sharing the same things. Everyone goes through the same thing. And it would be good to see what other people do in comparison to you. But it's also good to see that a lot of what you're experiencing is normal, and how you can manage it well. So what we will be looking at is, what is stress? How does worrying affect you? What is the difference between stress, worry, and anxiety? And yes, it's 3 different things. Then there's actually a 4th thing that we also address in the later parts of this the stress management course, is resilience. So all of those things are different components. And so we're also going to look at what can we do about stress. There's a little bit of an exercise. And then very importantly, understanding the brain and positive brain programming. If you understand what goes on in your brain, then you can actually manage your stress better. And then there's an exercise again, and there's some tips to help with stress. So someone says here, not sure if everyone's a problem, but the presenter's screen is too big. It cuts off. Do you mean, can you see my face rather than the actual presentation? Just let me know if everyone can see the actual presentation, because that's the most important part. The actual presentation is too big. Would you like to see myself as well as I'm presenting? I actually don't really know how to fix that. Okay, if I move the picture of myself, can you actually see me in the presentation block? I don't know if that's better. Let me just see. Okay, you can see me now. Okay, all right. So let's continue on with what it is that we're going to do. All right, so let's start with what is stress actually. So one of the reasons why I wanted to really find out what stress is because when I was much younger, I used to stress a lot. A lot of that came because of what I was taught, what I saw when I was younger. And stress was just, that was how I saw me and myself. I didn't see it as a thing that can be managed, that can be controlled, that can be done better. I just thought that is how it is. Stress is things that happens around you, but you're going to see how the different components are actually very manageable and controllable. And also just to tell you, what is currently going on amongst people out there is, because we do a lot of psychometric testing on a daily basis, we are seeing very high levels of pessimism and anxiety. So if you are feeling pessimistic or, well, just not positive, that is pessimistic, you're not the only one. But what you want to do because of it, and you do have a lot of good reasons for it, we can actually start counting it one by one. What is very important for you is to look at how you can manage yourself within that. So yes, all of these things are happening. It's real, it's true, but what can you do within it? So I'm going to answer that for you just now. So stress is the body's reaction to any change that requires adjustment or response. Now, this could just be when I walk from one room to the next and there's a difference in temperature. This could literally also be things like adjusting to a bigger thing like COVID, like what's happening in the country right now, the electricity problem. You have to adjust, isn't it? Every single stressor that's out there is something you need to adjust to. So the body reacts to these changes with a physical, a mental, and an emotional response. So stress is a normal part of life. You can experience stress from your environment, your body, and very importantly, your thoughts. And I'd really want to separate the thoughts part. Everyone suffers from stress. Even if you walk from one room to another and there's a small difference in room temperature, the body needs to adjust to it. It's during the adjustment phase where you either do well or you don't. So think about it. So whatever is currently happening in South Africa and in the world, you constantly need to adjust. And everyone probably just wants peace and quiet and consistency. And the chances of that happening is very slim. And if you look at the bigger picture, if you look at what's going on in Europe at the moment as well, there's bigger things to adjust to there. So the magnitude of whatever you need to adjust to, it's just a question of that will change. It will be bigger, smaller, whatever. So it's during the adjustment phase that you either do well or not. Okay, so what is stress? There's 4 symptoms of stress. The first one is an emotional symptom. The second one, physical symptom. Then there's a cognitive, and then there's a behavioral symptom. So let's look at the emotional symptom. And I am breaking it up so that you can identify what is yours. Do you have a combination? Do you have one more than the other? And if you have some of these symptoms, take note of that. Take note of when it pops up, and then you want to do something about it. So emotional symptoms is becoming easily agitated, frustrated, moody, feeling overwhelmed, losing control, the need to take control, having difficulty relaxing, quieting your mind, feeling bad about yourself, low self-esteem. And that feeling bad about yourself, how many times does it happen that you get feedback from a client or a person or something happens and you actually feel bad for quite a while? Where resilience comes in is how quickly you bounce back again. But that loneliness or worthless feeling or depressed feeling, sometimes it's just linked to stress, and you can actually recover quite quickly if you just take a breath and have some time with yourself. But sometimes we think you're a loser for a long period of time. It's actually not necessarily a long-term thing. It is what's happening at the moment. Physical symptoms, we're all aware of this: low energy, headaches, upset stomach, aches and pains, chest pains, tenseness in the muscles, can't really sleep, getting colds frequently, loss of sexual desire or ability. So these are a little bit of a thing that you actually see in your physical body. And it can come and go as well. It can be short-term, long-term. So nervousness, butterflies in the stomach, dry mouth, clenched jaw, grinding teeth. And then the cognitive symptoms, the easiest way I can explain this is going blank. You know that when you just go blank. So this could be constant worrying, racing thoughts, forgetfulness, inability to focus, poor judgment, just being pessimistic. So can you see that pessimism is also on this side? It is a cognitive symptom because you are worrying about, you can literally see the pawpaws going to hit the fan. So it's not a joke. You can actually see it. Your brain can calculate it. So let me just see. Someone made a note here. Yes, I can send you the presentation afterwards. So you don't have to make notes. I can literally email this to you. Okay, then behavioral symptoms. This is what you do to combat what you are feeling. So this could be changes in appetite, either eating too little or too much, procrastinating, that way you do everything except what you're supposed to do. That is a behavioral symptom. It's even when children try to study, or if you have a project at work and you just can't get started, that postponing and procrastination is you literally don't want to get going. So sometimes you feel pretty calm while you're postponing. Have you ever had that as well? You go through the day, it is actually indication of stress. So increased use of alcohol, drugs, or cigarette smoking, nail biting, fidgeting, or pacing. Monitor yourself closely. There may be things that you are doing that you don't even know when it starts, because sometimes it's very, very subtle. If you just see again, you sit like this. I sometimes do that, and then I think to myself, what's going on? Why am I sitting? Why am I chewing my nails? And then I realize, okay, just let it go. Just relax. The more you can get to know yourself, then you know when it kicks in. We're not always that aware of when it starts. So you need to start to become aware of your physical body, your thoughts, become aware of what it is that you say to yourself. Be aware of what just happened that made you start fidgeting now, or what triggered it. You want to become very aware, and this is where the emotional intelligence part will come in, that we will do later in the year. Become aware, become mindful. And the way that you do this is put your phone down and aside for just 5 minutes. Be with yourself for 5 minutes. Check in with yourself for 5 minutes. When you take a tea or coffee break or lunch break at work, how many of you actually go sit somewhere for 15 minutes just by yourself, looking at your sandwich that you're eating? We don't do it. None of you can tell me that you do. If you do, you're lying. So there's a question here. Will these symptoms be the same in teenagers? Absolutely. We do the same training with high school students. I wish they actually start doing this in school already. This is the most important thing. Research has shown that stress directly affects your analytical ability, your cognitive thinking, your literally to logically work through information and to work accurately and not be flustered. I did the research actually very recently. It's a recent study. And we all know it. I don't have to tell you that. You could put 2 and 2 together. I don't need no research to tell you that. So you need to be aware of that. Teenagers need to start learning how to manage their stress now already. And then there was another question here. How do you handle the constant worrying? Any tips? I'm going to speak to you about that. The worrying factor is my specialty because I was very good at it. All right. So let's continue with the stress. So stress equals tension. So stress could be described as an inner psychological or emotional or physiological tension in the muscles. This condition happens when more is expected of you than you can actually handle. This indicates that the individual does not have the ability or infrastructure to cope with the demand. So when you realize you're okay doing this much in your day, but now you're overloaded with this much. You can't really control what comes in and what not. So what you want to be able to do is, so I'm fine with this, but now I've got this much to do. How do I cope within that framework? And this is where you want to become quiet. And this is where you need to practice things like meditation or exercise, those type of things, so that you are ready for this when it happens in your day, so that you can stop and systematically go through it. This is how you deal with it. Some things cannot be done today and it will be passed over to the next day. But what happens when there's stress is when you feel like you're going to burst. You can't do any more within that framework. When you have to do work in 30 minutes time that you can only do in an hour, stress is caused. adrenaline and noradrenaline is secreted, and if this continues over time, this causes the body to become ill. So it's when you've got that hormone in your blood that short term gives you flu and stuff like that, fever, blisters, outbursts, whatever. On the long term, that's where you get the heart attack type of things that happens. So the only way that you can get rid of the hormone in your blood after it's been secreted is through exercise and meditating every day. They actually did scientific studies on meditation. If someone meditates for half an hour, when they test the saliva, there's a significant difference in the acidity of what's going on in the body versus after 30 minutes of meditation. That is massive. For people to bring down their acidity in their body, it takes them how long to eat better and all of that to change that. Meditation does it in a few minutes' time. Exercise, this is why people constantly say exercise. We've heard it since we were very young, and I think when we hear it now, you need a good diet and exercise, we almost laugh it off because everyone goes back to that. Really become aware of what that means. Every day you want to take a period of time for yourself where it's only you. It's not about losing weight or things like that. People must get that out of their heads as well. What they want to do is focus on me time. That's time for me when I'm only with me, myself, where I breathe deeply by running or walking. I combine exercise and meditation. The two has got the same type of principle because it's deep breathing, and you do get oxygen to cells that doesn't actually really get it during the day because we breathe very superficially. So that really gets it out. It sweats it out. The immune system gets pumping. And that's why it is so incredibly healthy for you. The fact that you want to eat well, when you eat badly, it puts pressure on the immune system. Did you know that 1 teaspoon of sugar puts 2 hours of pressure on the immune system? That's a teaspoon of sugar. Puts 2 hours. I wonder if it's not more. I think it's 2. It could even maybe be 4 hours of pressure on the immune system. So be very much aware. I think that is one of the first tips that someone will give you is cut out sugar and fine stuff because the immune system really struggles. So, okay. Let's do a stress self-check. At this current moment, what are your main causes of stress and what are your symptoms? So while you're thinking about that, there's internal and external stressors. So I want you to start separating it in your brain. So external is everything that happens outside. It could be a death, an injury, illness, relationship breakdown, being a victim of a crime, retirement, being a victim of Eskom. I just had to mention that. And then the internal, there you've got expectations, demands on yourself. Have you ever felt when everyone has got a demand on you? It could be your children, the workplace, it's a school and everything. It's all demands, but the demands will never go away. You need to start becoming okay within it. And that is where I will get back to the worry factor. Misperceptions, assumptions, fear. How many times do we run ahead of something that hasn't, someone said something and we're taking it out of context and we run with it? Fear and anger. These things are internal to us. The other stuff is external. Is there anyone who wants to share what is their current biggest worry or stressor? What is the current biggest? I know all of you are going to say Eskom, but there must be something else as well. So is there anyone who wants to share? Okay, so here is someone that asked, with me, it's more of the increased use of alcohol, and at times I want to stop it. So alcohol literally means that you are trying to relieve your pressure. So what alcohol does, and even pills, it fuzzies the mind a little bit. So it actually dulls it a little bit. So something else that you can literally do that will have an even better effect than dulling your mind is clearing your mind with exercises like yoga, meditation, or running. Because alcohol, unfortunately, is very short-lived. It's a short one, where exercise and meditation on the long term, it's got incredible benefits, but you have to do it continuously. Even if you just go for one run, have you felt how good you feel right there after the run? So you can't tell me it's not great. Remember, alcohol and pills are easier. It's very easy to just go like that for a run, to put in a little bit of effort. So choose what it is that you want to do. So someone says, yes, stress for them, work pressure, kids in school, very stressful. Yes, dealing with death, not getting over the actual death of a parent. Yes, that's a very, very traumatic event. Internal worry and demands of home and work. How to grow my business to become to be an income generator when I retire. Yes, I think demands on us are less controllable. Yes, but you can control what it is that you're thinking and feeling. So you are absolutely correct, but you have to split the two. The demands will never stop. Your issues in the world will never stop, but you can do a lot for you inside that. And I'm going to tell you just now how to do it. What else was here? Yes, worrying about meeting my monthly financial demands with literally everything increasing. Yes, constant increase in living costs. Yes, finances. That is probably the number one stressor, becoming a new parent. Yes, that can be stressful, and it can be fantastic, but the pressure of probably the lack of sleep as well. I just found out that I'm married to a narcissist, so I'm always stressed. Yes, that can be extremely draining because a narcissist only looks after themselves and not after the needs of other people. So work does take its toll on me. We have targets to meet, and I feel that I need sometimes to sell my soul to keep people happy. Yes. Interest rates is a worry for most due to the increases in cost. Okay, so all of you gave me very good examples of stressors, and this is real and it is legit. So, but what can I do within that? So I'm going to talk to you about worry and the definition of these things. I'm not trying to minimize your actual real life problems. What I do want to do is to help you to manage yourself in that, because that's the only thing that you can do is manage yourself. But now, before I start with this, I want to tell you, you must decide, do I want to have a better quality of life? Do I want to address these things? And for this to be good for you, you may need to apply a little bit of discipline and say to yourself, this is what I want in my life. This is what I'm going to do, and stick to it. And I also want to just add, there's a lot of things that you can do over here, but when it comes to a loss of a parent or something severe like that, don't ignore the help that's out there. If you need to go and see someone, go do that, because you have to go through that process, the steps of the process. And to get the guidance and help is something that will really be helpful. There are people that do that for a job. So they are there for that purpose. And get a good one. It's like a dentist as well. The first dentist you go to may not be the greatest. Maybe about the third one, you're happy with your dentist. So also shop around. Don't just, you know what I mean? Get the best for yourself. Okay, so I want to address the worry. So I think it was Gift who mentioned worry. What can I do about it? So let's talk about this. So why do you worry? From my experience, it seems that people worry because of a few reasons. They imagine that they can prevent bad things from happening if they worry enough, or they imagine that if they do not worry, it means that they don't care. Because think about it. Why do you worry? Why do you worry? Do you think it's going to make it better? You've got a purpose in your head for the worry. Try and identify what is your purpose for the worry? Why do you worry? If you can't afford a therapist, you know what I would do? I would try and put money away maybe for at least 2 sessions, but I would also do some homework I would read up, I'll do some research on things like how to cope with certain things when things are happening to you. You've also taken a first step to be in this session today. So it means that you're really trying. And so there's things that you can do: read, Google, research, maybe talk to people. It doesn't always have to cost a lot of money, but do decide if something is worth it, if you maybe need to put a little bit of money away, maybe even if it's just for a session or two. Okay, but let's get back to worry. So decide, why do you worry? Both of the beliefs that I'm providing here at the top is a false sense of security, but it's not true. In fact, some researchers have found that the reason why we worry is due to the absence of facts. That proves that everything will be okay. So without evidence, we worry. So because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, we don't know. So that the fact that you don't know, that is the thing that makes you worry. The actual fact is that we do not know whether everything will be good or bad. We actually don't know anything. So this creates doubt. And when doubt arrives, we treat it as fear. So ultimately, life and our futures are unknown. The one thing that we can be certain about is that we don't know anything. You don't know whether it's going to be good or bad or medium. You don't know. So for example, if I worry that I may get into a car accident when going on holiday, it's a useless effort because I 100% do not know whether or not I will be in the car accident. Isn't that true? But we sit and we speculate whether it's going to happen or not. The truth is that worry has got absolutely no purpose and it's totally useless. The problem is worry eats at your cognitive energy. So worry is based on fear and not on what is likely to happen, but rather on what would be terrible if it does happen. So our minds often like to imagine the effect of this terrible outcome, which is all based on creative and proactive thinking. So let's look at another definition for worry and then we clarify. So this is literally a dictionary textbook definition of worry. So it's a long one because it includes everything. So worry refers to the thoughts, the images, and the emotions and the actions of a negative nature in a repetitive and uncontrollable manner that results from a proactive cognitive risk analysis made to avoid or solve anticipated potential threats and their potential consequences. So that is a mouthful. But let's read through. Let's analyze that definition. So the first problem that I have with that definition is primarily the above definition refers to a negative thought. Interestingly enough, that we do not always focus on the possible positive things that could happen, but for the most part, we brainstorm all sorts of different things that could happen of a negative, that's negative or disastrous. Have you seen how excited young little girls of 10-year-olds with their friends are when they can go together on holiday, whatever? They don't sit and think like us about what if we get in an accident while we're on the way to the swimming pool. All they think about is I'm taking my Mikey with me and we're going to eat ice cream and we're going to swim and we're going to play ball. That's what you do before you get infected, like we've all been infected. So think back of how you were carefree then. Because we don't worry about the possible positive things that can happen. We really think about all the disastrous things that can happen. This could also be a very deep-seated feeling that you may not deserve it. Or maybe you just want to prepare yourself for if there's a disaster, So let's take an example. I will not do well in my test, or I fear a car accident while driving on holiday. So what is the solution? So Gift, you asked me earlier, how can I control my worrying thoughts? So this is my solution. So the reason why people do this is to avoid disappointment, or like I mentioned now, maybe you truly deep inside you unconsciously feel like you don't deserve that holiday, or you don't deserve whatever it is that's waiting for you, and you're running it ahead of time. So when I do fail in my test, so for example, I'm worried that I'm going to fail my test. So when I do fail my test, I can at least say that I knew it will happen and that I was prepared for it, so that the disappointment is not so harsh. So that's also a typical defense mechanism. So, of course, if I preempt the car accident, maybe I won't be so shocked or surprised, or it won't be so painful because I was expecting in some way. So that maybe the pain will be less if you hear the news, which is also, it's all nonsense. You can't control that, isn't it? So the solution to this way of thinking, and this is how you're going to have to try and retrain your brain. The solution is to redirect your thoughts to neutral. The bottom line is you 100% do not know what will happen. So you allow yourself to accept that as a truth. Don't preempt anything. You do your planning, you do your part, you do what it is that you can do that is in your control. So the second problem I have with that definition. So secondly, this definition focuses on proactive thinking about the risk. Did you see that when I read through the definition? It says it's quite proactive and creatively thinking about the risk that can happen. So this suggests that we run ahead with what could possibly happen. That's, of course, negative. Because remember, we don't worry about the positive things. We only worry about this part. That tells you already there's something wrong, isn't it? Then we actively and proactively think about the consequence. So, for example, it doesn't matter how hard I study, I will fail anyway, or my client owes me money and I will never see it. So the solution is the proactivity is possibly related to previous experiences. So because we are making something up. You are making it up. It hasn't happened yet. So we make it up because we've seen it in the past, or we have heard that it's happened to others, and we definitely don't want that disaster to happen to us. So you can calm down this proactive, creative thinking, because once again, you don't actually know anything. Remember, every single situation is different. So even if someone else got into a car accident, also on the way to holiday, your situation is totally different. Because there's correlations, does not mean that it can happen to you too. So although there are similarities, the outcomes may be different. So once again, it could be similar or different. You don't know what your outcome is going to be. So the third problem I have with that definition is we convince ourselves that we know what will happen. Then we can prepare for it, or the result will not be as devastating because we're expecting it. So, for example, I always do bad in my tests, or I worry that we will get into a car accident while driving on holiday. So I'm using the same examples so that you can get used to the type of wording. So the solution, and this is very important. So remember that your external things it's out of your control. You can't control it. I think someone made that comment earlier where they said these things are uncontrollable. And you're absolutely right. So now you need to look at what are practical things that you can do. So you need to accept what's in your power and what's not. It's that acceptance as well that sometimes we have a problem, is just accepting what is in your power and what is not. Practical things are in your power. What will happen in the future is not in your power. You may be able to do simple things that could have a better effect on the future, not control the future, but influence it. Because you don't want to control anything, because you can't. It's useless energy, you can't do it. But you can influence it. So for example, I can save money now for the future. I don't have to drink and drive. I can plan my studies. So to do well in tests, you can attend school, you can put the time into study for tests, you can manage your time and your stressors effectively, you can draft a roster, you can schedule your studies, you can take regular breaks, you can rest well, you can eat well. If you drive with your car on holiday and you fear an accident, you can do the following practical things: rest well, take frequent breaks, eat well, focus while driving, put down your cell phone, keep at the speed limit. I don't know if you've lately seen how many people just drive through red lights. That is really a practical thing that you can do. That is stop at a red light. So now that you know that you have done everything and you could and should have, there is nothing more that you can do and need to do. Then you know that you've done everything on your side. You've done everything that it is that you could, and that's good enough. That's the other thing. It's good enough. You don't have to do more. If you put in the energy, the self-discipline, it's good enough. You don't have to do more than that. So even if something goes wrong, you can rest assured that you did not do anything bad intentionally, but your intentions were good. So here are a few other reasons why people tend to think in disastrous way. And this is predicting disaster often creates a false impression that we will avoid disappointment. We resist changing our thinking patterns because it's less effort and more comfortable to choose the old way of thinking. Low skills recognition in oneself could lead us to believe that we do not have the necessary skills or knowledge to complete the task. We're not good enough. Low self-esteem could lead us to believe that the effort that we put in is not good enough. A lot of worry and anxiety comes from you feeling that you're not good enough. It's almost like because you're sort of looking for that confirmation. You're never going to get it. You need to start doing what it is that you can do and accept that whatever I'm doing is good enough. So can you honestly ask yourself right here where you're sitting today, are you doing enough? Are you doing a little bit of exercise during the day? Have you explored and researched nice things like yoga, like meditation? Have you done things like that? Are you at least purposefully trying to eat as healthy as you possibly can? If anyone can say 110% yes, then I will be very happy. If you are not there yet, then it means that there's still a little bit that you can do. You can still add a little bit of more value to your life, and in a disciplined way, stick to it. So also the last one here, experience. We've seen it in the past, and we're convinced that it will happen again because it's happened to someone else. But also lack of support from others. So a support network is also a good one, but choose the people that you want to talk to as well. Choose people that you trust, but also stay away from people that doesn't support, but sort of increase the drama or the negativity. Be careful of that. You want to calm down rather than get worked up. Okay, so if you thought that stress, worry, and anxiety is the same thing, we can teach you something today that are not. So this is very important because a lot of people, I see also the language that people lately use is they just say, I have anxiety. I'm so anxious. I have anxiety. I just have it. It's like I have my name is Celia. I have anxiety, or I don't think one just has to accept certain things. I think we need to learn what is out there, what's happening, what does it mean, how can I influence it, because you don't have to just accept, okay, I'm anxious and therefore I am screwed and that's just it. That is nonsense. You need to research, do your part, see what it is that you can do. So let me first separate the definitions for you. So stress happens in the body. It's something that happens right now. So stress is an emotional response and is usually caused by external triggers. For example, exams, traffic, boyfriend, girlfriend problems, poverty, unfairness at work, illness, and things like that. Worry is different from stress in the sense that it's mostly internal thinking and it happens in the brain. It happens in your mind. So worry hasn't happened yet. Stress is happening. Worry hasn't happened yet. It's very important. Stress is happening. Worry hasn't happened yet. So worry is different from stress. Sorry, I said that already. It is often triggered by something that is real. For example, getting cancer, losing a job, losing a loved one. So worry can get triggered by a stressor, but it's often followed by unreal imagined thinking. It's often followed by real fear or unreal imagined fear of what's going to happen now. So remember, I don't want to discredit your concerns. I'm not trying to minimize the thing that's happening, but this is the part where you can try and control your thinking to all that it is that you know. Worry is defined by internal thinking about problems or unpleasant things that may happen, and this causes you to feel fearful and unhappy. So in simple terms, worry is something that has not happened yet, whereas stress is happening. So my tip for you would be become very, very aware of what it is that you say to yourself. The internal dialogue is the massively important. It's the first thing that we teach students in high school is what you say to yourself, because you can control what you say to yourself. You have to be mindful. Let me just keep an eye on the time because I do want to go through what happens in your brain when you speak to yourself. So worry is highly affected by what it is that you say to yourself. So if you've got very disastrous, negative types of language, it's going to affect you dramatically. Did you see in the previous slide, I said there, an example was, I always do badly in exams. I never get a raise. Can you hear how dramatic I am? Never, always, dramatic. That dramatic words has got a very big impact on your physiological body and your mind. That influence, it feeds worry. So stop the feeding and say, I am concerned about A, B, and C, but I am positive. I am prepared. I am calm. Change your wording, but first you need to become aware of what it is that you say. We really, people exaggerate and we generalize. So take note of those two words. We exaggerate and we generalize. Those two things have got a very big impact on ourselves. So anxiety is the third thing. This is how everything links together. Anxiety happens in the mind and the body and is caused by persistent, excessive worrying about things. Interestingly enough, this can happen even when there are no stressors. So I'm going to repeat this because this is very important. So anxiety can happen even when there are no stressors. On the other hand, a buildup of a lot of stresses over a long period of time can cause anxiety. Unfortunately, anxiety has got the same symptoms as stress. So the reason why I'm saying anxiety can exist without stressors is because you can persistently and in a negative way work and build yourself up to something that really hasn't happened yet. That's why when people say, I just have anxiety, I have it. You're causing it. You are causing it. You don't have to chase everything away out of your life, because I think the next slide is actually about the fact that there's good stress and there's bad stress. So a little bit of the good stress, you want to keep it there. You're not dead. You're a living person. You've got a pulse. So you don't want to get rid of all your stress. If there's always a little bit of a nervousness or a tension here or there that pops up, that's normal. It's good. That little bit of excitement is good, but you don't want it to go into distress. And a little bit of that good stress may cause you a little bit of anxiety. I mean, you don't want your high school children to be so relaxed that they go into the exam or they don't care whether they start, whatever. That's another type of problem. That's why if you've got a little bit of anxiety, it's okay. But be also mindful of your habits, of how you get to your highly anxious stage. So remember, you have a little bit here, but don't go over there. Don't go over there. You don't have to have a zero heart rate and be dead. That little bit of stress, that little bit of anxiety sometimes is a good thing, but be mindful of what you say to yourself, how you build yourself up to that high level of anxiety where you don't need to be. Put everything into perspective. And what I found is a really very practical tip to deal with my stresses. So whether that's my finances, whether that's my workload at work, or whatever, start from one point and go to the next point and to the next point. Stop, look first at what you need to do and break it up systematically. You know, when it's all chaos and it's because your mind is chaotic. This is where your relaxation techniques come in. If you are able to sit down and say, okay, let me start my day. This is how I'm going to start it, and categorize and have time slots for everything, and start getting into a consistent pattern, even with your budget, even with your spending, with all of that. Even I want to take it as far as when you're having to deal with very, very tough, painful stuff. Be very much aware of when you have more of the emotion coming up, and just give yourself a second to just acknowledge it as well. And this is where I want to urge you to also speak to people. So whatever your type of worry or concern is, speak to people, check in with people, see what other people do, and then make a conscious effort to spend that time with you alone. If you really have heartache or really feel overwhelmed, go for a walk. Just take a 20 minutes or 30 minutes walk, or sit alone for 15 minutes just with your cup of tea and just say, I acknowledge my thoughts. I acknowledge my pain. I acknowledge my fear. We are not mindful anymore. We rush. We're always on the emails, WhatsApp, and those things. Just stop for a second and give yourself some attention. So remember, there's good stress and bad stress. You don't have to get rid of every single little bit of stress in your life. It's not going to happen in any way. Don't let that be your target, because then you're going to fail and then you're going to feel worse. It's good. You just want to bring your stress and your anxiety, you just want to bring it down a little bit. Just bring it down a little bit. And it will never also go from there to there. You bring it down with your habits, with the way that you talk to yourself, with your new healthy habits. Bring it down little bits. And then patience. So when you see you've failed again, you're stressed, you almost lost your mind again today, it's fine. Just take 20 minutes for yourself alone. And let me just quickly touch on this as well before we run out of time. So when I email you this, you can read through this slowly, because this is the process of stress in every person. So we need to analyze our stress and the experience thereof in order to manage it effectively. So first we look at the emotion. So when you experience a stressful situation, what feelings or emotions do you experience? So with the loss of a loved one, it may be intense heartache. If you have finance issues, you have that panic immediately. Or with workload, you could have insecurity or frustration, whatever. Identify your emotion. Then you want to look at your situation. What situation elicited the stress? We need to understand what types of situation triggers the stressful experiences in order to manage it properly. This feeling is a reaction to something, a situation, for example, something someone said, or getting test results back, or piece of music that reminds you of something sad, or traffic, whatever. But you had a situation that triggered it. It's only after the situation that you can experience the emotion. Remember, an emotion doesn't exist by itself all alone. There's something that brings it out in you. Anxiety, sadness, anger, insecurity, or more. There's always a situation. And it's okay. You don't want to do anything about it. You just want to acknowledge the thought of my parent triggered it. The traffic that I drove into now just triggered this. Because once you can see what triggered it, you will feel better already. So your physiological symptoms simultaneously may be tension in the neck, maybe tears in your eyes, headaches, knot in the stomach, backache or more, or whatever. So, when you sit like this at work and you just say, okay, whoa, where did that come from? Try to start to understand yourself. I'm not saying get rid of traffic and get rid of the finance, whatever, because you can't. But be aware of what happens with you. Who are you? What triggers it in you? What's your vulnerability? Just acknowledge it. Now, you can see that this is the typical stress, the stress process flow. You have a situation, then you have an emotion, then you have your behavior to try and combat that emotion. So the thing that all of us do, you have a situation, then you have a thinking process, and that elicits the emotion and the behavior. And remember, I'm not saying that if you drive into traffic, if you experience frustration because of it, which causes the emotion, I'm not saying become happy about traffic. My goodness, that's going to be almost impossible. But take your thoughts back to neutral. The traffic, that's just how it is. That is just how it is. Sometimes the traffic is bad, sometimes it's good. Today I hit it bad. It's unpleasant. And once you can accept or acknowledge that things will pass as well. So there's two things, accepting and acknowledging that things will also pass. you will handle it better. You can let it go. It's when we get angry at Eskom or traffic and we want to get rid of it. It's not going to happen. Accept it. Go with it. Your thinking process is one that you just want to change slightly. You want to become aware. How is it at this point? Is it, I always get stuck in traffic? It's actually not the truth. It actually just happens every now and again. It's not always. So once you change that to neutral, like, today's just a bad day. Yesterday was pretty good. You can get better at it. So I hope you can see what it is that I'm trying to say. Yes, I will definitely email you guys this presentation. So once again, I'm reiterating your thinking process. Okay, so there's 10 minutes left. This group exercise you can do when you get my presentation. You can do it at home. Understanding the brain. Okay, so something that people don't know about the brain, and this is once again why I say I wish in schools they will teach you this, because if I knew this in school, I would have been way more patient with myself. I would have been way more, trying to be positive. I would have just done better, probably, hopefully. So remember, the brain is made up of a whole millions and millions and millions of neurons. Can you see these little hair-like follicles on the end of the neuron? So there's millions of this stuff in your brain. The neurotransmitter is the thing. It's a chemical that runs from one neuron to the other. So when you tell yourself, I cannot do it, remember it, I'm not smart enough, I'm too stressed, I'm worried, I'm anxious, the fewer of the hair-like follicles there will be. That means, did I skip a page? Yes. So the fewer of the hair-like follicles there will be. Now you're going to, the easiest way to describe this to you, this is when you go blank. Because you can't remember. That would be my best explanation for you to understand what it is I'm trying to say. You know, when you're trying to write a test exam, even for you guys that's adults now, you remember when you were in school and you tried to remember something and you just went blank. That's because of that anxiety and stress. And it goes very much hand in hand with what you tell yourself, because you've been building yourself up. I'm not going to remember. I'm anxious. I'm scared or whatever. So changing what you say to yourself will significantly change this effect. So the conversation that we have with ourselves on a daily basis is the internal dialogue. So I want you to start becoming aware of what it is that you say to yourself. So now I want to give you something that you probably did not know. Whatever you tell your brain, it will believe you. So even if you tell yourself, I am stressed, I'm worried, I cannot sleep, it's going to believe you. If you tell your brain, I'm relaxed, I'm prepared, I'm calm, it will believe you. Another secret of the brain, you do not have to believe yourself. The biological chemical process takes place in any way. That is why it's so incredibly powerful when you are anxious and you tell yourself, I can't remember, I'm stressed, I'm worried, that you actually go blank. If you do the opposite, you are reprogramming your brain to the other side. So I always tell high school students, start long before the time already. Don't wait until you're in the classroom. Start way before already and have just 3 things you say to yourself. I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm happy. I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm prepared. Short, sweet, concise. Don't use negatives like I am not stressed. Don't use negatives. Keep it very simple. Say 3 very important, get 3 important things for yourself. Things that make sense to you. I'm happy, I'm calm, I'm prepared. And just start repeating it every single day, whether there's a test, work, stress, no stress, it doesn't matter. Get into the habit of saying it. The chemical brain process will take place automatically. The brain is amazing and we're underestimating it and we're not using it to its full capacity. This is very important. You need to tell your children this as well. So now that you want to be successful, or confident. How are you supposed to be? Because you've been telling yourself all the time, oh, I'm so nervous, I can't do it, I'm so nervous. then you're going to be nervous because you're telling yourself that. Because remember, the brain is just another organ in the body. So this is very, very important. So even if you don't believe yourself, even if you've got the sweaty palms and you're in the exam room or at work doing a presentation, whatever, sit up straight and say to yourself, I'm calm, I'm prepared. And this is also where deep breathing exercises may help you. Places where you can learn about the breathing exercises. Meditation is the art of living. I don't know if any one of you know them. They're worldwide, incredibly cost effective. You can literally download the stuff on your cell phone. It's guided meditations. That would be my other tip to you. Don't try and meditate on your own. Do guided stuff. Get trained and let people teach you and show you how to do it. If there's any members of Art of Living here today, I would love to see your hand, because that is just amazing. So everything I told you now, I wrote down here. So you can go read through it in more detail. And once again, manage it, limit it, remove it. So look at what it is that you can do in your life. Here I've put down a bunch of tips for stress. And once again, I'm starting here with healthy eating. So how many times have we heard the same old story? And it's because it's really important, because with good food, you will not only feed your central nervous system, you are actually, with food, only feeding your brain. It only goes to the brain. The rest goes to the body and muscles and fat and stuff. But the food that you eat only feeds the brain. So be very aware that you don't drink too much coffee. If you have high anxiety already, be mindful of the amount of caffeine. Swap it with here and there. Swap a coffee with caffeine with a decaf. Have a little bit of a balance. I'm a coffee addict, and I know it interferes a little bit with my meditation or whatever, but I do a little bit of a balance. Life is short. Also don't want to suffer. But have a balance. Eat healthily. I try and get as much spinach and stuff like that in with smoothie stuff. It takes you 5 minutes to do. Read up what feeds the immune system, what is good for the central nervous system. Exercise a little bit, and don't exercise for losing weight. That's horrible. No one wants to do that. Do it for you, for that few minutes. It's only you by yourself. Clear your head, breathe deeply. And this is where next time when we are going to talk about this again, we'll talk about resilience. If you start feeling hot or sweating a little bit, just push through it. Don't just stop because you're now getting tired or hot. That's what resilience is. Push a little bit. Push yourself a little bit. You're way tougher than you think. Take vitamin B supplements. It supports the central nervous system. The central nervous system is the thing that gets worked up when we drink too much coffee. It's the thing that gets calmed down when we exercise and when we meditate. So the central nervous system is also underrated and underreported. We never refer to it. The poor thing goes up and down and it's chaos. When the phone beeps, you go there and you're there. Calm down. The central nervous system is overworked. It needs to sleep at night. It needs to calm down and just take a breath and do your planning every day well. If you plan and you structure, compartmentalize, have little time slots. I was never the planning type. I hated it. I'm very flexible and adaptable, and my pride was all in that. And I just realized the older that I got, you need to compartmentalize. You need to have time slots. You need to write it down, slot it in there. I'll get to it here, and be realistic in your planning. It does work out a little bit better. You know, when you go on holiday, then you can just do whatever you want, but also don't overplan. Be flexible with your planning. Don't be too rigid. Be flexible, but plan. And now, lastly, I just want to urge you, it's 10 o'clock now, research things like meditation, yoga, and breathing techniques. I am now so in a habit of doing meditation in the morning that's guided. I don't do it just by myself. Sometimes I do it by myself, but I've got guided meditation and breathing exercises. In the afternoon, I have my exercise and I do it come hell or high water, and my day feels longer and it feels more relaxed. I can literally now not even do it without it anymore. So there's a few more things that you can look at that you can do. And then there's a breathing technique, and then we are finished. Are there any other questions? And I want to say so much thank you for participating today. I think our next session is next week, Wednesday. So please join for part 2, because we're going to build on this one. And I think somewhere in April will be part 3. But please join us. There's some very good tips. You know most of the stuff that I told you today, but even if there's just something extra that I told you that that you didn't know, do your part. There's still some things that you can do. Do your part. You haven't done enough yet. The stuff from the outside is very hectic. It is uncontrollable. It's massive. If you just look at from which angle stuff comes at you, you need to get some stuff in place to help yourself. So thank you, everyone. Everyone's saying thank you to me, but I want to say thank you to you, and just look at the first step that you've taken. The fact that you are here today tells me that you really want to change things. So yes, I'm going to be sending you the notes. You can either email me. I will be sending this to HR Talk, but you can also email me directly. Let me just see if I can, if you can see my email. So this would be my email address, celia@ptesconsulting.co.za. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see my answer, but there's my actual email address. So info@PTES Consulting or Celia@PTES Consulting. Email me and I will email you this. So I hope to see you Wednesday. Please let's continue this conversation and think about what it is that's worrying you, and let's address it. Okay, everyone, thank you for you. And have a lovely day. So see you next week.